Knowles on the News. Susan Knowles.
Well, it's been another exciting week, but for different reasons. This week has been all about let's attack Donald Trump because he said something that most Americans are thinking, but they don't want to say because of political correctness. Now, did he go a little bit too far in what he said? Yeah, a little. He talked about how people who are here, Muslims that may go out of the country and come back in, may not be allowed back in. I get it. You know, it wasn't artfully done when he said it that way. But his main gist was, why are we still bringing people into this country, these Syrian refugees, a prime example, when we know that there is a potential for them to be terrorists? I mean, to think otherwise, to say otherwise, to do otherwise, you're either have your head in the sand or you just don't care. You know, understand that people always, and it is an always thing, people always get upset on the left, progressives do especially, when they see you not bringing in whomever, you know, whatever country that you're from, immigrants from whatever country. They get really upset because they want to say, oh, well, you know, it's a Christian thing to do. We should bring in tons of people and we should provide for them, et cetera, et cetera. We're Americans. That's what we've always done. I don't know of anywhere, biblically speaking or anywhere else, where it says that we have to bring in people and overrun our own culture and our own country, as we're seeing right now in Europe. But apparently there are plenty of Americans who would be okay with that. To have a change in the culture of American culture to whatever new culture was born out of people coming in and taking over. I guess they're okay with that. Well, I'm not okay with that. We have an American culture because we are, drumroll, Americans. And we have to maintain that. I know that for years and years and years and on and on and on, there have been various groups that have been trying to break down and destroy the American culture. And they have gotten really far ahead in that game. Too far ahead in that game. And they're continuing to do that every day. We see the breakdown in marriages. We see the breakdown in families. We just, change the definition of what everything is. And you're supposed to accept it. It's the new American culture. And if you don't accept it, somehow you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're this, you're that. And Donald Trump, being who he is, and we have to remember, he's not a politician. So he's not going to say things in a well-rehearsed way that a politician would, or a very diplomatic way that you can be assured that there's not one group in particular that's going to be ticked off at you when you say it. He's just going to say it. And again, he's not always going to say it in the most artful way, but he's going to say it in the way he feels is the truthful way. And that is, he looks at it as Muslims coming into this country pose a threat, and we should stop the progress, if you want to call it progress, stop the progress and the process until we figure out how to vet these people properly. And I can tell you, there's not going to be a way to do that, because if you've ever read the Quran, you will know that it is permissible, if you are an Islamist, it is permissible to say to a Christian that you are a Christian or that you believe in Christianity, whatever you want to say, whatever you have to say to get what you want. So if you're following the Quran to the letter of the law, so to speak, in the Quran, and you believe everything that's in there, and you're a radical Islamist, then you're going to say whatever you have to say. Here you had this terrorist in San Bernardino who worked side by side with Christians and people of other faiths, and the people liked him. Obviously, he wasn't, mean and despicable to them, because they threw him a baby shower. They hated him so much and he hated them so much that everybody was agreeing upon and attended a baby shower. I mean, that's what our mainstream media would have you believe. I'm sure that's coming, that how he was bullied by everyone. I did see something saying that they made fun of him because of his beard. Yeah. Anyway, you have to understand that this is a different way of life. And you're not going to convince somebody who feels that way that if you're just nice enough to them, they'll convert. They'll be okay and they'll be accepting and they're not going to hurt you. And I'm not saying that everybody who believes in the Quran 100% is going to hurt you. Chances are it's very high that they might. Because if you've ever read it again, it says to destroy the infidels. I mean, to look at that and not acknowledge that is ridiculous. And again, I've seen a lot of Christians who choose not to think about that. They choose to become like the Muslim refugees that they're taking care of. They wear the head wraps if they're the women. They go and do things with them in their culture. I don't know. I don't see how that is our biblical principles. I really don't. And I don't think that you have to become like someone else in order to convince them. See, that's been the argument with some of these Christians that I've been talking to. Well, it says in 1 Corinthians that you're supposed to become like the Jew in order to be welcoming to the Jew, or you become like this faith in order to be welcoming to that. I mean, I think they've read it out of context, for one. And, while we are supposed to help sinners, and I'm not calling any religion a sinner, let me just get that out before the political correctness police come by. But before we can help a sinner, we're not to become the sinner. We're supposed to be the light for the sinner. I don't remember anything in the Bible that says, become the sinner, act like the sinner. You may go where the sinner is and help the sinner out, but you're not to become the sinner and not to partake of the lifestyle. So I think we have to be very cautious about that during these times where ne'er-do-wells are thinking that they're doing the right thing and they really aren't. And I call upon the pastors of the churches. You are charged with leading your flock according to biblical principles. And you have a higher standard to meet in God's eyes than I do, because you are a pastor in charge of your flock. And you cannot do anything that turns them against God or leads them astray from biblical principles, or you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And I don't think some of these pastors are speaking up. I think they're looking at it as, oh, well, this is a service type thing, and we're serving, and therefore we're just kind of fitting in. Yeah. Not good in my book. And again, I don't speak for God. I don't speak for anybody else. But from what I know of the Bible, to me, this doesn't look appropriate. But anyway, back to Donald Trump. It's going to be something in the mainstream media for a while, because it's like sharks circling around for the kill. They smell blood. They think they do, and they wanna move in for the kill. And that's what people do with progressives and with their agenda. This is what they do. It's right out of the Saul Alinsky book. You're basically supposed to, start the shaming now. Oh my gosh, he's just horrible. Donald Trump, he said this, and oh my gosh, you probably heard the other day, oh, he can't be president now. Josh Earnest in his prepared speech, oh, he's got to be disqualified as a presidential candidate, and all those Republican candidates who are also supporting him, well, gosh, they need to be disqualified too. And I don't know, while we're at it, why don't we disqualify anybody that happens to be anything else other than a progressive liberal? Huh, Josh? You are with someone every day that you should know whether or not they're qualified. And I don't know, from where I sit and all the illegal executive orders, one has to question the qualifications of this president. In any event, also, of course, we have I'll call them the Gang of Five. From what I saw, it's not like the Gang of Eight, because there were only 5 of them standing there. It was Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, John McCain, and I don't know, a couple other people standing around saying, oh my gosh, Donald Trump, we can't even stand to look at him anymore, basically, and we want him out of here, and he shouldn't even be president or anything else. Marco Rubio, I think Marco's true colors are starting to come out. I mean, I've always felt this way about Marco Rubio. When he came out standing there with the Gang of 8, it was over for me. That's all I needed to know. He stood there with the establishment GOP, and guess what? He's still standing with the establishment GOP. And why is he doing that? Well, everybody expects that Jeb Bush is going to drop out sooner or later, because look at Jeb Bush. I mean, he's got, 3%, if that, right now in the polls. He has, I love these websites. Go to jebbush.com, and you will see Donald Trump. And everything that has something to do with Jeb Bush, it's Trump's people. I pretty much have taken it over. It's wonderful. It really is. And it's like, come on, Jeb, I mean, time to step down, buddy. But anyway, Marco, once again stands there now in a Gang of 5 and starts the same rhetoric, because I'm sure the rhinos have come to him and said, Marco, we're going to tap you because you're our guy. Jeb's not doing so well, so we're probably just going to have to get him out of the way, and you're going to come in. And before we do that, I want you to go out and speak about this thing with Donald Trump, and let the conservative Republicans who love you so much, let them know that you do not like what Donald said and that you think it's horrible. All right, we need you to do that. So Marco Rubio comes out and says, Trump's position on curbing immigration is offensive and outlandish. Yeah. Don't be fooled by Marco's position on immigration either. He tries one day to tell you that, he wants to curb illegal immigration, and the next day it's just the opposite. I mean, it really is. I don't think he's flip-flopped so much and moved around on this position, he doesn't even know where he stands. It depends on what they're telling him that they need this week. The other gang of 4, he's part of the Gang of 5, so the other 4 are saying, okay, well, this week, Marco, we need you to do this. And of course, Lindsey Graham, who's there as, somebody's joke, still in the race, needs to get out as well. He says Trump's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. Really? So did you tell that to Al Sharpton recently? Did you come out, Lindsey, and point that out about anybody else? Or is it just Trump that you're after? And we know it is Trump that you're after. It is Trump that the GOP in general is after. And this is just ramping it up for them. My gosh, they're loving this. Giving them one more excuse to come out and say, we don't want Donald Trump to be the presidential candidate. And, the more they talk, the higher in the polls that Donald Trump goes. The American people, and they don't understand this because they're so out of touch. The American people are basically saying, we're sick and tired of this. Don't you get it? We're sick and tired of it. We're sick and tired of the PC crap. We're sick and tired of sitting around watching our country be absolutely destroyed by this administration, by the people that you want to bring in. We've also looked around Europe, and we've seen what's happening. We've seen that the increases in rape, in crime, and everything else that you throw it in there, throw in the kitchen sink, have gone up where you've allowed these Syrian refugees to come in. And we don't want to see our country fall. I think it's Sweden where the incidences of rape now have skyrocketed. And in like 15 years, less than 15 years, the culture there will no longer be of the people of Sweden. It will be a brand new culture, and they will be the minority in their own country. And you can't tell me that that's not what this president hopes will happen to the United States. I mean, you're bringing in, 80,000 this year, 100,000 next year, and on and on and on. That's a lot of people. And a lot of people who will not assimilate into our culture. They just won't. Read the Quran. And everybody is so quick to point out, Donald Trump, he's a bigot. He's against, all kinds of races and all kinds of religion. But nobody seems to question the fact that our government is allowing in only Muslim refugees from Syria. Why no Christians? Why are you not allowing in Christians? Is that not a First Amendment freedom of religion argument there? I mean, you're so quick to say that on the other side, like, oh, he's not letting in Muslims, and there's a First Amendment right. And again, I'm sitting here, everybody's talking about how unconstitutional that is. There's no constitutional rights for refugees that are not in this country. Show me where that's at. Show me where it says that. We have we do have laws that you want to bring them in and all this. I understand that. These people aren't even on American soil, and you're willing to extend them all kinds of constitutional rights. More so than even the people here who have a right to be defended from enemies, foreign and domestic. Nobody stands up for those rights. Nobody cares about that. We only care about looking good. Oh my gosh, we can't sit there and try to protect ourselves. I mean, religious freedom is more important than us trying to protect our country and not be killed. Come on, have you lost your minds in this? Where is the common sense? Where is being rational here? Where? And again, I say not all Muslims are Islamic radical Muslims. I get that. Not everybody's going to go out and kill you. But my thing is, even if one does, why invite that one into this country? When especially, again, there are Christians who are being beheaded every day in these countries. And read the history of Islam. Read it for yourselves. Find out how long this has been going on, the persecution of Christians. I'm going to have a guest on Monday who's going to be talking all about that. Go and listen. Go and read. Do whatever you have to. Get caught up. We're not talking about kumbaya here, and being friends. I don't know, Americans are going to have to somehow get to an understanding of this. Just because you feel something towards someone and you feel charitable and you feel welcoming and you feel love doesn't mean you're going to get that in return. You have to be reasonable. Again, you wouldn't leave your child with a pedophile. You just wouldn't. Or somebody that could possibly be a pedophile. No matter how much you love that person and how much you hope they're going to be a great person, they just might hurt your child. I mean, there's got to be common sense in everything, in every subject matter, in every area. We can't just sort of put aside common sense in one area and pick it up again in another. You're being played. You're being, shamed into losing your common sense, into thinking that everything's okay when it is not. And we see, again, the agenda of what's going on in the progressive left and the progressive right. Paul Ryan, he helped derail, this is from a Breitbart article, he helped derail bipartisan immigration cuts proposed in the 1990s, which would have necessarily reduced the Muslim migration surge. So what does he do? He comes out with this latest with Donald Trump and says that his position on pausing immigration is not conservatism. We can't pause anything. We have to go full bore on everything, or it's not conservatism. What? The word conservatism means doing things conservatively with some reason and whatever. I know I'm upside. I'm by myself on this. I get it. Okay. Anyway, Ryan added, "What was proposed yesterday is not what this party stands for, and more importantly, it's not what this country stands for." Ryan, get a shave. Is it anybody else but me notice that Ryan is growing out a beard, and I don't know what's happening to him, but I think it's affecting his thinking. So get a shave, Ryan. Get back to the guy you were. I don't know who you're trying to be now or what you're trying to do, but I don't know. I think it's fogging your mind. Now, this report goes on to say over the next 5 years, the United States will issue more green cards to Muslim migrants than the population of Washington, D.C. The Senate's Immigration Subcommittee has documented with public Homeland Security data. A green card puts recipients on a path to citizenship and access to welfare and entitlements. I tell you, if I were a legal immigrant and been here for years waiting for my turn to become a citizen, I would be livid right now that somebody is going to be brought in a free pass, thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people eventually if the United States gets its way. And meantime, you're getting pushed farther and farther back. And I want to know who's going to pay for all this welfare and entitlements. I mean, I know it's going to be us. But, we're running out of money. We're running out of everything. How are we supposed to do all that? Taxes get higher all the time. I live in California. Taxes, everything is ridiculous. Don't get me started on California. And we're supposed to bring in more people that we're going to be paying all these welfare and entitlements. And these elderly people who are always scared that Social Security is going to be taken away from you. Come on. Do you not see the writing on the wall? This is what happens when you vote Democrats in and when you vote progressive Republicans in. This is what happens. And I know people are saying, well, we just have to start voting better and get better people. Yeah, we do. There's a lot of things that we really do need to do better, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that. I just don't think people have it in them. We keep voting in the same progressives because we've been sold a bill of goods for so long, and people are buying it. And also, when we go to elect somebody, the candidate during the time that they're up for election, gosh, they're just great, and they believe this, and they tell us they believe this, and then when they get in, it's somebody totally different. Who are these people? Who do they turn into? So it's kind of like they're tricking us. And honestly, if you took away the salary that these people made and gave them a stipend to those people who really just wanted to be in there to do good, you wouldn't have this problem. But they get so much money, so much comes out of being a senator or, a politician. My gosh, long after they've served. And you get insider information, basically, on things. You don't have to use Obamacare. It's on and on with the benefits. So you go in for, a lot of these people to get out of it what they can get out of it. Make a career out of it, line your pockets, forget about while you're there, and then move on. So, voting just doesn't seem to work anymore. Now, other things that this article said about Paul Ryan, I think, is good for all of us to see. I wasn't in favor of Paul Ryan being the Speaker of the House. There's no way. I learned my lesson with Mitt Romney and when he was with Mitt Romney and found out how basically liberal they both are. So Paul Ryan has a two-decade long history of promoting open borders immigration policies. In 2013, he told a crowd that it is the job of a lawmaker to put himself in the shoes of a foreign national, specifically foreigners from countries with large Muslim populations, and work to come up with solutions and immigration policies that would improve their quality of life. Let me just tell you, Mr. Ryan, your job as a lawmaker is to protect and defend the Constitution from enemies, foreign and domestic. Okay? Your job is to focus on American citizens. And if you want to try to make anybody's life better, it should be the people who sent you there, the voters, the American people. And I'm telling you that because I think you've forgotten. I think you have, again, get a shave, all right? Start thinking straight. Something is wrong. You can't handle the beard. It's not working for you. Anyway, Ryan says, put yourself in another person's shoes, which if you're in elected office, that's what you kind of have to do that almost every day, every single day. The gentleman from India who's waiting for his green card, the dreamer who is waiting. We take all these different perspectives. We process it through our values and our morals and our principles. And then we come up with the answer to try and solve this problem. That's basically what we do in our jobs. Really, again, I didn't see anything in there about anybody who is in America and an American citizen. It seems like your focus, Mr. Ryan, is everywhere else, but where it should be. Now, also, Ryan declared the vast, and he said it 3 times, majority of Muslims are peaceful and believe in pluralism, freedom, democracy, and individual rights. Okay? And that means what? Why should I listen to that and think that there's maybe one in there who doesn't? And I love this. The article goes on to say, however, it is unclear what polling data Ryan is basing this assertion upon. In fact, on Monday, and this is great, the National Review, whose own editorial board endorsed Ryan for speaker, published a piece debunking this very claim. And the piece is entitled, Dispelling the Few Extremists Myth. The Muslim world is overcome with hate, states plainly, it is simply false to declare that jihadists represent the tiny few extremists who sully the reputation of an otherwise peace-loving and tolerant Muslim faith. In reality, the truth is far more troubling, that jihadists represent the natural and inevitable outgrowth of a faith that is given over to hate on a massive scale, with hundreds of millions of believers holding views that Americans would rightly find revolting. But what happens is, nobody talks about that. Nobody wants to be politically incorrect. Nobody wants to be called a bigot. Nobody wants to stand up like Donald Trump and say the truth because they know that they will get this type of backlash. And it went on to say that in the Hoover Institution, a media fellow and New York Post contributor Paul Sperry has noted that there are 51% of Muslims living in the United States who just this June told polling company they preferred having the choice of being governed according to Sharia or Islamic law. Perry writes that 60% of Muslim Americans under 30 told the Pew Research they're more loyal to Islam than America. Okay, so what is it that people don't understand? Why do people not get that? It's sometimes it's just mind-boggling, but again, I want to look at it and say that a lot of times, mainstream media is not talking about this, and for a lot of people, that's where they get their news, and they believe everything that the mainstream media says. I mean, so many people want to sit and watch CNN and think that that is accurate news and that they, it's truthful and no problem. When we all know, we've heard the lies coming out of CNN and Fox even. Fox has its own agenda. Fox used to be pretty good, but they have their own agenda too. And part of their agenda, whether Fox wants to admit it or not, is getting rid of Donald Trump. They just don't want him. It's obvious. It's been obvious to me since the very first debate, when everybody was saying afterwards, well, not everybody, but some people were saying, I don't understand. I mean, if he can't handle the hard questions, it was so one-sided. Oh, my gosh, it was such a setup. And, for anybody to try to make that anything but that is ridiculous. It was very obvious. So this is where people get their news from. And they're not going to do research on their own, and they're not going to know what's happening. And then there were also things in the news today. Let's see, in Europe, 150,000 people supposedly have signed a petition banning Donald Trump from Europe. Oh, really? Come on. Now, if this is something that the European government goes along with, this is absolutely total insanity. So we can't allow Donald Trump there, but we can bring in Syrian refugees that we have no idea who they are. I don't know. You know, whether I like Donald Trump or not, I think I would feel safer having Donald Trump in my country than I would, you know, the Syrian refugees that I know nothing about. And the Syrian refugees that I've seen on TV, on different clips, going through the streets and committing crimes, and the statistics that have gone up in Sweden from the rapes that have occurred, and what I've seen on, you know, other social media sites in regards to what these refugees have done. And I've also watched Periscope, watching them come in on boats into Greece and just running and leaving things on the ground and taking off and, you know, leaving neighborhoods just virtually destroyed. Okay, yeah, those people, that's great. Let's bring them in, but God forbid that we allow Donald Trump in because he said something that you didn't like. You know, what happened to a time when people could say something, and whether you agreed with it or not, you just kind of either ignored it or thought to yourself, wow, don't like what that person is saying, so I'm going to kind of back away from that person. You were able to make up your own mind. That no longer happens. Now we have to annihilate them. We have to destroy them. We have to remove them from anything that they're doing. It's gone so far to the extreme. It's ridiculous. We all know that. And that's exactly what's happening right now with Donald Trump. They want to keep going. And, you know, I like the fact that Donald Trump is not apologizing because we all know in this game, in this shaming game, and a guest I just had on his book, Scarlet Letters, and you can hear the podcast at Spreaker.com. Just look up Stand for Truth Radio and you'll see it. Jack Cashel was his name. But he talks about, you know, if you give in to the shaming and you start apologizing, because they want Donald Trump to say, I was wrong, I shouldn't have said that, and he apologizes, okay? So once he does that, it's not enough. Because when they see the weakness, they go, okay, now we got him. And they just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming until he disappears, drops out of the race, whatever they want to accomplish at that time. So he's not doing that, and I'm really glad to see that he's sticking to his guns. I mean, even if you make a mistake, it's okay to make a mistake. Then you can say, you know what, yeah, maybe I could have said that a little bit better, but here's what I meant, and you just go on. Instead of being tossed aside. And as you've noticed, that never happens on the progressive left side. They can say all kinds of crap and rarely, if ever, apologize. And if they do apologize, it's never heartfelt, but it's just kind of one of those, here's an obligatory apology. And they go on. Nobody says, we call for you to resign, you should give up your crown, whatever. Nothing like that. They just keep going. But that doesn't happen with conservatives. They go in for the kill. Like I said, they're circling right now. They're like sharks in the water on both the progressive left and right. They smell blood and they want to move in for the kill. And what they don't realize is that the more they do that, the more the American people, those Donald Trump supporters, they're just going to gear up and support him more. Because they believe in what he's saying. They believe, and a number of people that I've spoken with, they believe that he is really the only hope to try to turn America around. That nobody else is really going to do that. Now, I like Ted Cruz. I've said that all along. Would I like to see a Trump Cruz or a Cruz Trump ticket? I don't think you'll see a Cruz Trump ticket, but there's a possibility of a Trump Cruz ticket. Yes, I would like to see that. If that's what it comes down to, absolutely. They're the only two candidates right now that we have on any side, left, right, that has an inkling of a chance of doing something in this country that is not to the detriment of this country. I mean, after all, we've had 6.5 years. We're still going. We're still seeing the detriment. And in my opinion, unless we stop the Syrian refugee resettlement until we figure out what's wrong with the process, we're just going to rapidly continue to go downhill. And again, if people think that San Bernardino is all we're going to see, you are seriously kidding yourself. Because every time the jihadis sense weakness, they will keep coming. And it'll get more and more, and it'll just be, nationwide, countrywide, worldwide. It's what happens. Read history. Read the history of Islam. I mean, I don't know how to say it. I mean, I really wish that people would turn off TV for a while, maybe, keeping up with the Kardashians, just record it once and read something so that you will know who the enemy is. And you can better protect yourself and your family that way. But anyway, Senator Ted Cruz has now got a state refugee Security Act of 2015. It's now before the United States Senate for formal consideration. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But it's been joined by his former boss, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, and basically, it would give governors the right to reject the settlement of refugees from any nation in their state at their sole discretion. Now, of course, that's going to mean, Ted Cruz is a bigot now, and that'll be next. I mean, right now we're just focused on Trump, so we can't focus on Cruz yet, but we'll get around to it. In November, he introduced the Terrorist Refugee Infiltration Prevention Act, which would immediately bar refugees to the United States from any country, such as Iraq or Syria, that contains territory substantially controlled by a foreign terrorist organization. And the bill sunsets after 3 years so that Congress can reevaluate the global situation and either let the bill expire or reauthorize it with necessary modifications in light of changed circumstances. And in January, he'd introduced the Expatriate Terrorist Act of 2015, which would remove U.S. citizenship from Americans who travel overseas to join ISIS and wage jihad. So who knows what's going to happen with this? Again, why isn't anybody on the left, and we know the answer, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, and you get it too, but why nobody on the left seems to care at all, not at all. They don't feel that there's any need to protect the citizens of this country. Everything's great. These are the same people that go around with armed guards everywhere they go. Their houses are guarded. And the same people who are caught, like, I think Bustamante, the lieutenant governor of California, in a gun shop. California telling you, oh, man, the governor came out recently, we need stronger gun control and nationwide and federal government, because he knows California already. You can't say state in the state because we have some of the strictest laws, but let's make this, federal laws. We need them to be stricter. We need it for all over the United States because, good gosh, we would have prevented something like what happened in San Bernardino. Oh, wait, oops. San Bernardino is in California, isn't it? I'm just waiting for the governor here of the state to talk about how to curb bombs and anything else that was found that these people were going to use. And it's interesting, too, and we're going to have to see where this goes, but there was a guy who reportedly was a friend of the terrorist who bought the guns for him. And that's interesting. I don't know where these guns were bought because I don't think you can buy those guns in California. And there's also, you can't just buy a gun in California and give it to somebody or sell a gun to somebody. You have to go through a gun dealer to do that. You can't just have private people. It's my understanding in California. It's so strict. You can't do things like that. And so the friend now supposedly has checked himself into a mental ward. Maybe he saw the light. I don't know why you're in a mental ward. But he was getting ready to convert to Islam. And now he's locked himself up maybe to protect the public from him or to protect himself from himself. I don't know. Or maybe just to protect himself from the police, perhaps. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. I do think that the mother of the terrorist, my questions that I keep running through my head are, why is she still here? Why haven't they either arrested her, deported her? They found things in her car linked to, target practicing. I think they found maybe some ammo. Those things, I get it. They're not against the law. But she's living in a house. I mean, you're watching people come in and out day and night. You have to have seen something. I mean, the neighbors were seeing something that looks suspicious. Imagine if you're inside the house. Are you never going to go in the garage? You're never going to question why all these people are coming day and night, mostly night, who these people are. I mean, they're not just sitting around playing poker, I wouldn't think. And you have to know something is going on. Now, maybe she was afraid to speak out. I get that. But she's obviously got potential to help somebody else, right? Just keeping quiet while she lives with them is another thing that I think people are going to have to concern themselves with. I don't think that she's necessarily innocent in all this, but it's going to be very difficult to prove something against her. And I guess now the dad of the terrorist has been placed on a no-fly list, and I'm thinking, well, why the dad and not the mom? It doesn't make sense. Is it because he's a man and she's a woman? There you go. Is it discrimination? Oh, put everybody on the list in that family. And then it's interesting too. Now there's going to be a custody battle over the baby that was left behind in all of this. Right now she's in CPS protective custody, but it's interesting that CAIR, the organization CAIR, is coming out and they're trying to help the family regain custody of the child. And if you've looked at any of these CPS cases that we've seen, it's not that easy to get your child back. There are people that go for years thinking they're going to get their child back when they really have absolutely no chance, but they're not told that in the beginning. And they're made to go through hoops and at the very end say, well, sorry, you don't get your kid back. So it'll really be interesting to see if CAIR is able to go around the system, which wouldn't surprise me, would go around the system and get that child back into the custody of its own family. I guess there's some people in CPS right now saying the child is not going to be returned, but I don't believe that. I mean, we have so many things happening inside this government right now. We can't get, Pastor Saeed back from an Iran prison, but we can get anybody else out, it seems, that we want to. Like Bo Bergdahl is who I'm talking about. So we will see if they're able to pull strings and get this baby back into this family. I think they wanted to get it to maybe her sister. I'm not sure. They're a very close relative. But it's so sad because this child had absolutely nothing to do with this. And now this child has lost two parents. And who knows what kind of brainwashing may occur with this child and telling her that, the parents are martyrs and they were great and you should be like that. I would hope that wouldn't happen, but I'm also not naive. So as we're nearing the end of the week, where do we go from here? Well, I know many people are sort of discouraged. They don't know what to do. They know that there's an issue with terrorism in this country. They know that it is going to get worse before it has even a chance of getting better, if at all. And they see our administration, our government, basically doing nothing. If you watch the speech, you know that there's nothing new. It's the same old thing. And in addition to being the same old thing, it's the same old message. Don't worry, be happy. Do. Let's sing a little song and go on about our merry way and everything's going to be okay. We've got this. We've got the JV team. They're contained. We're not worried. San Bernardino, gosh, in the beginning, it could have been workplace violence. Now it's really not looking that way. But let's not worry about, particulars. So what do we do? Well, I've said before that I don't think that we can continue to do the same old thing and get a different result. We have always in the past sort of turned to our congressmen and women, gotten on the phone, called them, asked them not to vote for a particular bill or to support this bill or whatever the case may be. It's not working anymore. I mean, you really have one or two Congress people that seem to even care. And I know when, at the very beginning, when I was trying to get Speaker Boehner out, in the very beginning with the new group that came in, I called my Congressman Duncan Hunter in California and asked that he fire Boehner. And a lot of other people called him as well, and it didn't do any good. And absolutely didn't listen. Now, why is that? I imagine because people in Congress said, oh, we can't do this. If we go ahead and we vote this way, it's just going to tick people off. It's going to tick off the rhinos. They don't want this, and therefore it's not. We can't allow him to lose face. We'll wait until another time. We'll just put it on a back burner, and we'll make this happen. I promise. And the only reason it really did happen, it happened because Boehner stepped down. Probably somebody finally went to him and said, you're becoming too much of a distraction. Is it time for you to retire? Do you think you can step down at this point? And even then, it's kind of like on his terms. Wait till after the Pope's here, because I wouldn't want the Pope to think that I'm as horrible as I really am, and this gives me my opportunity to see the Pope, and then I'll just go and go bye-bye, and you won't hear from me again. I mean, it's real. If you think about it, how it was done, there was no congressional process that accomplished this, because our government, our Congress as well, are very ineffective. They're not doing what they were sent there to do. They're not even utilizing the power that they have to do what they're supposed to do. And for us to continue to call them or to continue to think that voting is what's going to do it, I just don't see it happening anymore. We have to come up with other ways of doing things. One of the things, I recently wrote an article for The Blaze, and if you go to the contributions section, the contributors section, you should see it. And it's in regards to, we have to find a better way. Do you feel safer now? And the answer, of course, is no. We don't feel safer after the speech. And we don't feel that this government is doing what they're supposed to do or that our Congress is doing what they're supposed to do. And I really believe that the only way we're going to have a chance of accomplishing what we want to accomplish, and that is to have our government act minimally as they're supposed to, is to stand up in groups of people. And by that I mean, of course, legally and morally. I have to say that for the PC crowd out there. But I think we need to have organizations working together. For example, the ACLJ, great organization that they really accomplish a lot, but you don't hear about them in the mainstream media or on TV. You really just don't. They kind of work behind the scenes, and they protect people's constitutional rights in school. They do, a myriad of other things in front of the courts, and they get laws changed that you will never know about. Standing with those people and perhaps that group and another group like the NRA, those two together, and then another group like Liberty Counsel. I'm just naming off names right now because I don't really know what groups would or will want to stand together. But I think if you get groups all standing together, we're better in numbers than we are by ourselves when it comes to something like this. When we had the Chick-fil-A thing, look how many people came out. That would not have been a success if it were one person trying to put something together. That happened because we collectively, and I know everybody hates that term, and I do too, but collectively we came together and we accomplished something. It sometimes is why people do the march on D.C. It's having numbers, because let's face it, this administration no longer takes us seriously. It's just like the GOP. Obama does not take them seriously. He knows they're not going to do anything. They're more lame duck than he is as a president in his final months, hopefully. And so we need to show that we're serious. Now, how do we get these groups put together, working together? That's the hard part. It really is going to be the hard part. If this were on the progressive left, there would be no problem. We would have groups calling and volunteering to come together. But we don't have that. We tend to, fight each other more than we do work together. And a lot of people want to, take credit, and they're not willing to work and have some other group take credit for what they're doing. So we think about and consider those type of things. And we have to stop. And I don't know if we can save this country. I honestly don't know at this point. But all I know is that I want to continue working hard on doing so. I'm not one to sit down and go down without a fight. It doesn't make sense. We need to use the Constitution. We need to use every legal means of doing something, and stand together. The most important part is stand together. As I said, I don't think what we've done in the past, it's not working any longer. It just isn't. Will we ever be able to return to a point when we could just call our congressperson and say, we don't like this and this is what we want you to do? I don't know. I think it's going to take a while if we ever can get back to that point. I think it's been too long this way, and with nobody willing to do anything about changing it, except, again, you may not like to hear this as people who don't support Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is the only one who's willing to stand up and do something different. You may not like what he says all the time, and you may not like how he says it, but at least he's willing to get a conversation going, to move this country in a different direction. And I know a lot of people are thinking, well, yeah, it's a different direction, all right, it's a scary direction. Well, I wouldn't go there and say that. I don't believe that. I think the direction that we've gone in from this president has been the scariest direction I've ever seen this country go in my lifetime. Could there be scarier times? Absolutely. But I don't think it's from Donald Trump, nor do I think that he's so unreasonable that if he does say something that's incorrect, that he won't listen to people if they tell him, Donald, you really shouldn't do that. I think he's open, especially if it's the American people telling him, no, you got that one wrong. I think he will listen. He doesn't listen to the left because he knows what's going on. So we have to keep that in mind. But again, I think we need to start looking at different ways to reach this government. And there may be some of you who say, and could be rightfully so, there's no way to reach this government. It's not going to happen. Let's just quit trying. Maybe so. Maybe that's what we have to do, and then we just take care of ourselves. And that's hard to do when you live in a country that is a republic. It's hard to be able, unless you're living off the grid, and they're not going to let you do that very long, to take care of yourself and to kind of stay out of everything. It affects all of us all the time, and this is still our country, and we still have to have a voice and maintain that voice and keep trying to maintain that voice when we do lose our voice and aren't listened to by our government. But we have to do a different way, try something new that we're not doing. I'm going to continue to try to pull groups together and figure out how to do this and ask other people to help me do that, because I think that it's very important that we do that. We really are entering extremely scary times. I think we entered scary times a while back, but we're getting into scarier times because, as I said before, I think there are going to be more terrorist attacks and more things happening, more chaos going on, and it's going to be very difficult for people to kind of maintain their sensibilities, even more so than what we're seeing right now. And I think it's important for us, and I know a lot of people are on Facebook and they're saying things and, lock and load and, all kinds of things and what they're going to do. I think you have to be careful about what you say. Not everything you say is protected by First Amendment rights. You can't incite violence or anything like that. And I know most of you don't mean any of those things, but you're just angry. But be careful what you say, and because I think right now people are really looking at everything and everybody. And sometimes looking at the wrong people, looking at people who aren't even terrorists, and then overlook the terrorists. But that's we know that's been going on for quite some time in this country as well. So just be careful. Just continue to be reasonable people that you are, and don't get carried away. But continue to strive for getting your voice heard by your government. And I think one of the best ways is to continue to work to get the attention of Congress, because they have a lot of power that they have refused to use. And the way to get that attention and the way to make something happen is, unfortunately, being in bigger groups together, working towards that end. And is it a perfect solution? No. If you have a more perfect solution, I am all ears and ready, willing, and able to listen to what you have to say. And if it looks like it's something that's viable and legal, then helping you make it happen. And one thing I think that we really need to remember, things get really tough and we start to get discouraged a lot in this country, I believe. For people that are awake, it's very difficult. And I know I've said this to you before. There are really good people in this world, and I've met some amazing people. And as time gets tougher on us all, I think the more you're going to find these wonderful, God-loving, God-fearing people come out, and you're going to see amazing things taking place. You're going to see people taking care of each other more. I think you're going to see more kindness than you ever have seen. And yes, you're going to see on the other side as well, things get worse. But I think as long as we as Christians can stay focused on the areas that we're supposed to stay focused in, that if we don't look down and think that everything is that way, because it simply isn't. There's a lot of light in this world, and right now it is unfortunately grown dimmer by all of the increase in the darkness that has come about this country. And a lot of it because we haven't been following biblical principles for a number of years, and it's where it logically will go. But I think that we just need to just keep looking in the right direction, keep our faith, keep encouraging each other. And I really think that's truly important, because we are in this together. And sometimes I know, I'm just like you, it's always great to call somebody up and talk to them, because you'll find out you're not alone. You're not alone in feeling the way you do, and that people will be there to kind of help you through things. And that's really important, because everybody needs to have that shoulder to cry on, that shoulder to lean on from time to time. And we can do that for each other. We can also do things like praying for each other that will help get us through. And I know a lot of people are out there hurting, and they do need a lot of prayer. And if you're like me, you want to help them, and sometimes the best way to help them is to just pray for them. And we can also pray that those people who are our enemies would see the light, would repent, and would turn towards God. And I think for some people who, like the jihadis, that would be an absolute miracle. Can absolute miracles happen? Yes, they can. But while we wait for a miracle, we have to also be rational and reasonable and use common sense when dealing with people who are sworn to hurt us. And I'm talking about the jihadis. Don't be fooled by what's going on in the mainstream media and how they're telling you that you're the bigot, or that you're the one who is discriminating against a certain religion, or whatever the case may be. You know in your heart who you are. You know that you're trying to protect yourself, your family, and your country. And you're doing the right thing. Everything has to be morally and legally upheld and according to biblical principles, and then you know you're on the right track. People will try to convince you otherwise, and don't believe the lies. And again, that's why it's so important in these times to have someone that you can talk to, you can call up, you can pray with and pray for, because people really need that. It's an amazing time to be alive. It's a difficult one, and those that have children, you have to keep maintaining that positive attitude, because the kids need to have as normal a life as possible. And I hope that coming here and listening to this radio show, you get the news, you get the truth, and you also are encouraged by what you hear. Everything I do, I try to do based upon God's principles, and I know you do too. Until next time, it's Susan Knowles with Knowles on the News.